It's often said that records are meant to be broken, but in some cases, especially with the way that the NHL has evolved throughout its history, there are some records that are just impossible to break. Here are the top 6 unbreakable NHL records. Joe Malone scores 7 goals. In January of 1920, Joe Malone became the first and only player to notch 7 goals in a single game. Malone was playing for the Quebec Bulldogs, and the historic night came during a game against the Toronto St. Patricks. It's been over 100 years, and this record is still going strong. To give some context on how this all came about, the Bulldogs had the worst record in the league with 1 win and 10 losses, but that losing record did not slow down Joe Malone's scoring ability. In the game against the St. Patricks, 7 minutes into the first period, Malone put away his first goal of the game. By the end of the first period, the Bulldogs were only up 3-2, but once the second period started, Malone came out swinging and potted his second of the game to give the Bulldogs a 4-2 lead. By the end of the second, the score was 6-4, and Malone had already notched 4 goals in the game, which means, he scored a hat-trick in the third period to get to that 7-goal mark. The Bulldogs were unable to turn their season around and went on to only win 2 more games out of the next 12. As for Malone, he went on to score 39 goals throughout their 24-game season. If the NHL had played 82 games back in this era, that would have put Joe Malone on a pace to score 133 goals. Teemu Selanne's 76-goal rookie season. We've seen some unreal rookies enter the league and have themselves one hell of a rookie campaign. But I don't care if you're a McDavid or a Matthews caliber player, it's just impossible to score 76 goals in your first season playing in the NHL right now. Selanne was selected 10th overall in the 1988 NHL draft, but did not play in the NHL until the 92-93 season. This could perhaps be the reason why he was so dominant in the league when he started. By the time he got there, Selanne was 22 years old and had been playing in the pros back in Finland, developing his game. So when he entered the NHL, he had already grew into his game and polished up his scoring ability. In 84 games played that season, Selanne not only showed us his scoring ability, but his playmaking abilities were on display too. He added 56 assists to his stat sheet, which added up to 132 points throughout 84 games played. Which, by the way, is another record that no rookie will ever come close to breaking. Wayne Gretzky's 51-game point streak. Now, we just saw Mitch Marner get to the 23-game point streak, which became the longest point streak in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs and is extremely impressive. However, that doesn't even come close to Wayne Gretzky's 51-game point streak he had going in the 83-84 season. The Oilers were just getting started on their quest that led them to several Stanley Cups, including one that came at the end of this season. On January 28th, the Oilers faced off against the LA Kings, who at the time had the NHL's worst goals against with 244 in just 51 games played. The odds were definitely in Gretzky's favor to keep that streak going, but LA's goalie Marcus Mattson rose to the occasion and had a shutout going up until the third period. The Oilers did, however, end up getting on the board twice in the third, but Gretzky was not involved in either of those goals. Gretzky basically played the last 5 minutes of this game in an attempt to keep the streak alive, but the LA Kings were able to hold him off, and that 51-game point streak came to an end. In those 51 games played, Wayne Gretzky scored 61 goals and had 92 assists, finishing off with 153 points, and it wasn't even February yet. Since we're talking about Gretzky, how about we get his other unbreakable records out of the way now really quick, and then we'll move on to give the spotlight to the other players that deserve it. Here are some of Gretzky's other unbreakable records. Most points in a season with 215 in the 85-86 season. He has the most career points with 2,857. And of course, he also has the most goals scored with 894. Now, this one might not be unbreakable because Ovechkin seems to be on his way to breaking it. Let us know in the comments below if you think Ovechkin has what it takes to break Gretzky's record. Up next, we have Happy Gilmore. He was the first and only person to ever take off his skate and try to stab someone with it.
I took my skate off and tried to stab somebody. I'm the only guy who ever did that.
Just kidding, but I would have hated myself if I didn't include that clip in the video. Moving on, Bill Mosienko's hat trick in 21 seconds. On March 23, 1952, the Chicago Blackhawks were facing off against the New York Rangers. It was the final game of the season for the New York Rangers, and the Blackhawks had no chance of qualifying for the playoffs. It was the third period, and the Blackhawks found themselves down 6-2, a deficit that when you look at it seems impossible to come back from. But 6 minutes and 9 seconds into the third period, Mosienko scored his first goal of the game, notching his 29th goal of the season. So one more goal and he would achieve that 30-goal season mark. And he only had to wait 11 more seconds before that would happen. So now he has 2 goals, and rather than getting off the ice, Mosienko and his line mates lined up at center ice and wanted to keep the momentum going, which they succeeded in, as 10 seconds later, Mosienko flips the puck over the goalie, going top shelf for his hat trick and making NHL history with the league's fastest hat trick to ever happen. On top of that, the Blackhawks rallied and were able to score 2 more goals to take the win 7-6. Spoiling the Rangers' last game of the season on home ice. The Washington Capitals and the worst inaugural NHL season. The Capitals were welcomed into the league in 1974, and although we've seen them recently have success, back then they certainly got off to a rough start that will likely never happen again in the NHL. In their inaugural season, the Washington Capitals posted a record of, wait for it, 8 wins and 67 losses with 5 ties. Giving them the worst NHL record to ever happen and the worst win percentage we'll ever see in the league with a .131%. It actually took the Capitals until 1982 to post their first season with a winning record, and they finally entered the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. The 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens. In the 76-77 season, the Canadiens were in their 68th season as a franchise and were on their way to making NHL history for setting a record for most points in a season by a team. Through 80 games played, the Canadiens had a record of 60 wins, 8 losses, and 12 ties, bringing them to 132 points. The only other teams that came close to beating this record were the 95-96 Red Wings with 131, and the Canadiens in 77 and 78, who tried to beat their own record but tapped out at 129 points. I personally think this record may not last forever, but for the next few years, I don't see another team dominating the league the way the 76-77 Canadiens did. Thanks for watching our videos. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.